we hear that term all the time in commercials, podcasts, what have you, but nobody actually explains what a fiduciary is.
So as a fiduciary, we are obligated to put the best interest of others ahead of our own.
Hi there, and welcome to the Trust Exchange podcast series, proudly presented by Norway Savings Asset Management Group. And without further ado, we're going to go around the table and say hello to everyone.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Cook. I am the head of the Trust and Wealth Management Group of Norway Savings Bank, the Asset Management Group. I've been at the bank for a little over 20 years, and my background is in trust and fiduciary work.
Fantastic.
Hi, Norm. I'm Rachael Billings. I am a senior trust officer and relationship manager with the Asset Management Group. And I've been with Norway Savings Asset Management for just about 2.5 years. I have been in banking for just over 20 years. So lots of experience in banking and trust services.
And that's what it comes down to, is that experience and having that trust in each other, as we take a line from the title here per se. So we know managing your finances can be really overwhelming, daunting at times, especially when you entrust placing your hard-earned money in the hands of someone else. We know that you have the best interest in everyone's money. Unfortunately, not everyone is like that, though. There are financial professionals who act solely in your best interest, at least so they say, and there are consequences with working with the wrong advisor. But the thing that we have to understand, and what separates Norway Savings, is that you are a fiduciary institution here. So we hear that term all the time in commercials, podcasts, what have you, but nobody actually explains what a fiduciary is. I mean, we go out to the audience and raise your hand if you've heard or you know what the term fiduciary means. So one of the things we're here today to discuss is, what the heck is a fiduciary?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So as a fiduciary, we are obligated to put the best interest of others ahead of our own. And so that means we have certain legal obligations and duties to care for the assets that are placed in our care, and make distributions to beneficiaries as appropriate. The bank, about 20 years ago when it was started, applied for and received trust powers from the state of Maine and the FDIC. And so that means that we have the ability to serve as trustee in someone's estate plan or in their financial plan. We can actually act as a corporate fiduciary, corporate trustee, which is a really important service that not all financial advisors have the ability to do.
What's the advantage? Not everyone serves as a fiduciary in FI either.
That's true. So the distinction of being a true fiduciary really sets us apart, because essentially it means that what Jen just said, we have to act in the best interest of our clients. We cannot do things, we can't buy and sell stocks for our benefit. There are some institutions that may charge commissions based on their trading activity. And in our case, we do not do that. We cannot do that. So our decision making is purely for the benefit of our clients. I think it's important for the prospective client, when they're interviewing different organizations that they're potentially going to work with, they need to ask the question, are you a fiduciary? And they will find out, hopefully, very transparently, whether it's a yes or a no.
I also think making sure that you understand and you're really clear on what fees are going to be charged. As you said, Norm, we're very transparent. And so our fees are detailed on our client statements. They're easy to understand. They're not complicated. Sometimes when you're trying to determine what fees are on different products, you're given a prospectus, could be 50 pages long, and you have to dig through to try to figure out what are the fees that I'm actually going to pay on this fund or this product. And sometimes they're actually incorporated into the performance of the fund, and so you never actually see the fees coming out. That is not true for us. You look at your statement, you can see each month the fee coming out. It tells you how it's calculated, and so it's very obvious. Intentionally, we want you to know exactly what you're paying for, and so no hidden fees at all.
So if I were to find the correct steps to finding the right fiduciary, I guess for me, I'd define my goals. I'd probably do some research. I would look at verified credentials, and I would ask a lot of questions. So if we were to break those down, how would we break those down? First of all, when somebody looking to define their goals.
Well, we really start when we meet with a new client. We want to find out what their primary goals are so that we can then develop an appropriate investment strategy for them. So that's a very important part of the process when we start working with a client. And that really drives everything we end up doing for them. It's based on their goals and their needs, and then developing an appropriate plan within that scope of being a fiduciary and making recommendations appropriate for their long-term, short-term goals.
What about verifying credentials? How do we go about doing that?
That's a good question. We all have some different certifications. Sometimes it looks a little bit like alphabet soup. So I would say, again, ask. We can tell you about each of our certifications. They are appropriate and applicable to each of our specialties and our backgrounds. So on staff, we have Rachael and I are both certified trust fiduciary advisors. We have a CFP on staff, a certified financial planner. We have a certified investment management analyst, a CIMA. And so there's quite a few different designations and certifications, and asking about those and sort of vetting the experience and the background and what they've been through in order to be certified, in order to get those designations, is important.
Let's go back and talk about a first experience, a first meeting. So let's pull back the curtain all the way here and tell us about a first meeting with you as AMG being a fiduciary.
Well, the first meeting really starts by just getting to know the client and finding out, like we talked about before, what their goals are, what their needs are, what they have for resources, and really just kind of take a deep dive into what makes them tick and what they're hoping to accomplish with their money. Their story. Yeah, it's really more about the money and less about the money, more about them. And then really, we'll talk a bit about our services as well, just to make sure it's the right fit for that prospective client. Really, it's just making sure that we understand them and that we can help them with the things that they need help with.
So let's debunk a myth off the top. You don't have to be wealthy.
We work with clients with varying levels of wealth. Our minimum is $300,000, and that's a relationship minimum. So if there's multiple accounts, we can work with you. We're happy to just take a look at what you have and see if there's a way for us to help manage your money.
One thing I really like about how we approach meeting with a prospective client is, as Rachael said, we take a look at what you have. And if you're doing fine where you are and we can't do better than what you're in now, we tell you that. We don't try to bring you in if we think that we can't add any value or add value to that relationship. So also, if we think you belong in a CD, then we're going to bring you to our branch and we're going to introduce you to those branch folks, and they're going to help you with a CD. So we're not out to bring in a client just to bring in a new client. We want to make sure that not only is it the right client for you, but that we're going to be doing you justice, that we're not just trying to sell you something. So I think that's really important, an important part of the process.
What about an age bracket here? I mean, we don't want to say it's too young, too old, somewhere in between, but it varies with everybody here. But give us a happy medium of when is a good time, I guess, to kind of come in and speak with you about this.
Well, we love working with clients of all ages. It's, I would say, really, it depends on what the needs are, how much in assets have been accumulated over time. But we really, the situation varies person to person. We work with younger people who perhaps have inherited some money from loved ones who have passed. We work with a lot of clients who are nearing retirement and are thinking about the next steps. And then we also work with older folks who may have already entered retirement and might be looking for a change in their investment advisor. So we really can tailor our services to any person, no matter their age.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about fiduciary services specifically, I think starting those conversations when families are younger, maybe they have younger children and they might have a need for those fiduciary services and they don't even know it yet. Maybe they need to have in their estate plan, they have a need for a trustee in case something happens to the both of them and they have assets that they need to have managed for their young children. So I think when we're talking about fiduciary specifically, the tendency is to think older, but actually we want to establish those relationships and develop them so that we're working with those clients through the different phases of their financial life.
Do most people come in like overwhelmed with everything? Like this is too much for me to absorb. It's your job to kind of, you're the calming factor here. So do you see a lot of people coming in overwhelmed, and explain why, it doesn't have to be like that?
We do. It's a lot. Their money is important to people, right? Their trust and their estate plan, that is important. But when you think about it broadly, it can be overwhelming. And so what we try to do is just break it down layer by layer so that it's not as overwhelming. And that we really hope that we can convey the fact that we can help them, hopefully in all aspects of what they need. If their needs go beyond the scope of what we can do, we have lawyers and accountants and other trusted contacts that we can always refer them to for the things that we might not be able to fulfill on our own. But we really do. We're part of that process, and we try to make each client feel comfortable. Hopefully, after they've left that initial meeting, they won't be as overwhelmed because we've set a plan in place for how we can help them and make it less overwhelming.
And the estate planning piece is never fun to really think about or talk about because you're talking about what happens when you're gone, what happens if you pass away suddenly. And so it's never something that anybody looks forward to talking about or doing, but it's one of those things that I think once people have done that and realized, okay, these are the steps that I take. I need to talk to my attorney about drafting a will, and maybe I need trusts created for the benefit of my children. And once you check those boxes, it's such a sense of relief knowing, okay, it's at least I've done what I set out to do, and those things can be changed in the future. So it's never anything that's set in stone. It can be changed, but at least you've checked the box and you can feel good that you have the basics in place. And I think we do a really good job of helping people outline those steps and helping them support them so that they can check those boxes.
It really is a wide berth here, a wide sweeping berth here, because you can plan for retirement, manage taxes, I would assume, set up a college trust fund, and navigate the life changes you were just speaking of. So it really is a broad stroke, isn't this?
All of those phases of life. And so when we start with clients, if they're at the younger stage, then we might be talking about all of those things that you just referred to. For older people, maybe we're helping them prepare the next generation or two in order to inherit that wealth. And so that's really important to us too. We want to get to know your family. We want to help prepare and support those children or grandchildren to inherit some wealth. And sometimes that's where the conversations about establishing trusts come in. If you have beneficiaries who need a little extra support in making sure that assets are being managed and preserved for the future, we like to come in and make sure that those beneficiaries or future beneficiaries are comfortable with who they're working with, that they already trust us, they know our skill set, they know our backgrounds. And so parents or grandparents can leave knowing that they have these support systems in place for their loved ones.
Yeah. And part of this too, Rachel, is as a fiduciary advisor, you've got to help avoid emotionally charged decisions, right? I mean, this is it. You've got to just be the calming factor through good times and bad.
Exactly. Yeah. People go through a lot in their lives, and a lot of that intersects with their money, right? And so it's our job to really be there as a calming force. Hopefully, as we were talking about before, if they're coming to us in a state where they're overwhelmed, we can hopefully just explain that we are going to help them and guide them forward no matter the situation. So
taking the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's the thing. You've got to, can't panic sell or do anything along those lines if the market's down or what have you. You've got to just play it out through, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of conversations.
Yeah, because when people are managing their own assets and trying to make those decisions on when to sell, that's when sometimes emotion can get the better of them. And so we have very structured, intentional parameters around which we buy or sell stocks. And so it really does, with our research and our procedures, we have really ways that we're taking the emotion out and relieving people of having to make those decisions themselves. They can be involved if they want to be, but we really try to take all of that fear. A lot of times it's fear. We take that right out of the equation.
Yeah, but we always tell clients that if they are fearful or if they do have concerns, that they can always reach out to us. And we want them to know that we are approachable. We're here whenever they might have a little angst. No matter what the situation is, we want to hear from them. And they do. They call us, and we have conversations all the time. And a lot of times we can make somebody, or we can help somebody feel more comfortable with the situation.
It's amazing what communication can do. Just the two-way conversation, and that's pretty much the key to it. Absolutely. As we start to wrap things up here, some final thoughts as we conclude this particular episode. I mean, your future is way too important to leave by chance. So by choosing a fiduciary advisor, so you're ensuring everyone's income comes first here. So what are some key takeaways from today, and how can people go about to initiate a conversation with you to talk about some of the key points we spoke of here?
I think one of the key takeaways is that it's not trust and wealth management. You don't have to have millions and millions of dollars. We work with everyday people, people who have maybe changed jobs and they have a 401k balance, people who've maybe inherited a small amount from parents or grandparents, or they sell a house or a business. All of those individuals could have an opportunity or have need for our services. So we really want to make sure that people understand that we're approachable, that when they sit down and talk with us, we're not trying to sell them anything. We really want to get to know them. We want to see if it's something that we can help them with. And most of the time, we can. A lot of times we can help them. And so we really want to take the threatening environment out of it and just sit down and have a conversation with us. we really like meeting with people and hearing their stories and wanting to know if we can help them.
And you've been at this for a while too, Rachel. So it's incredibly satisfying for you. But to Jen's point as well, having that conversation, providing someone's best interest at heart, the knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that you disperse to people too. So, for people that are looking for an introduction for you per se, what advice do you give them?
People can find us so many ways. You can reach out to any one of our branch staff. Our website lists all of our bios and contact information. So if you're interested in learning more, talking with me or any one of us, just reach out and we would love to get in contact with you and continue the conversation.
Okay, well, Jen Cook and Rachael Billings from Norway Savings Asset Management Group, also known as the AMG. Do you call yourselves the AMG or just AMG?
Just AMG, I think. Yeah.
It's like the AMG.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us today for this podcast series, The Trust Exchange. We thank you for your time today, and we'll be back with another edition of the Trust Exchange podcast series presented to you by Norway Savings Asset Management Group.